you streaming, Nathan? Oh shit, never mind. Yeah, hello. Welcome to PSGL Season 41, Round 7 here at Silverstone. I'm here, I'm Harry, my co-commentator Nathan is also here. He's just on mute for some reason, been trying to get his attention, however, he isn't responding.
Hi, Harry.
So, yeah. Hello.
So sorry, mate. For some reason, my mic weren't picking up any audio at all during the whole thing. I thought you were just being quiet. Oh, Jesus.
I was trying to hunt you down for about 20 odd minutes.
Oh, sorry, mate. I had to unplug my dongle for the headset and plug it back in. How are we anyway, Harry?
Yeah, I'm good, yeah?
Yeah, not bad. Looking forward to this rainy race here in Silverstone for round 7 for PSGL F2.
Yeah, just typical Silverstone's the best way to put it. Nice, cold, wet and cloudy, as David Crofty would say, but we've got cars immediately going out on track trying to get the most use out of these intermediate conditions, because you never know. Will they transition into the full wet, or will they go to the dries in due course? That's why the drivers just want to get out now, get that banker in, and then say that's a lap in case anything does deteriorate. From there, however, it's Salvo who is currently leading the charge around this Silverstone circuit.
Absolutely. So through Maggots and Beckett goes the Kick Sauber, who is soon to be the Audi Revolut F1 team. So they just announced their new logos today. Cannot wait to see them on the grid in the real F1 next season. So as we come to start a lap for Salvo, he heads down in towards Vale, one of the most iconic overtakes of all time in Formula 1, with the Hamilton goes through. But around turn 18 at Club to start his lap on board with the Kick Sauber of Salvo as we head in towards Abbey at turn 1. He'll go over to the left hand side, boot it to the right, and he just holds on to the rear of that car as he just squirms through the rain down in towards Village at turn 3 into the loop, and you can see how much he's struggling, Harry.
Yeah, it's just literally trying to keep the car on the island for the time being as they keep squirreling that rear end out of Aintree up towards Brooklands. Now heavy on the brakes, drop it down a few gears, then slowly try and ease back onto that power. You can just see, even though they are very subtly applying the throttle, the car just wants to drop underneath them, just showing how unstable that Sauber truly is here today, as they are just going to continue to relentlessly push on, just like all these drivers do so, into Copse Corner, could go horrendously long, goes right up to the white line, but manages to keep it all going as they now go through one of the most flown complexes on the whole F1 calendar of Maggots and Beckett, then out through Chapel and onto the Hangar Straight, again fighting that car, reluctant to follow Salvo's command, going through Stowe. It looks a bit more tamed down this time, however, drifting a bit on the exit down the Vale Bank into the Vale Chicane. They've used up all their deploy, so it's all going to be raw pace on the exit of the Vale Chicane up to the line, and it's an okay bank of a 38.4.
It is indeed. So 138.4 for Salvo. We'd have a couple more drivers coming through, and as Harry mentioned, through Maggots and Beckett, a lot of the tracks have took ideas from that S section as we look at Suzuka and Coulter. So Shadow comes through at 137.5 in that Alpine, so sets another decent bank lap. We've got so many drivers coming to the line now. Diogo Silva in the Red Bull, a 1:38.3, but way clear at the moment is Shadow. He must have got a decent lap. Here comes Lucas. Lucas in the William, a 1:37.5, but just in front of Shadow by 6/1000ths of a second. The German has arrived. Ivan in the other Williams, his teammate, goes up to P3, a 1:38.2 for him, and then IRTC joins the pack with a 1:38.2. They are there and thereabouts, but then TF10 Sam comes through from out of nowhere in the other Sauber and sets a 1:37.2. Mattia Manga in the Aston Martin. They're just, it is heating up now, Harry.
Yeah, Sam kind of needed that lap, but then it was quickly stolen by Mattia Manga, who's only 12th in this championship. They only slowly started to pick up form over the last two races. Back in Spain, a fairly hectic race for the Barcelona circuit. 5th place for that Aston Martin. They're just trying to push that further up, but that provisional pole lap just quicker than T-Show and Sam, definitely setting the bar quite high for the Aston Martin team as Benjamin is rounding out of the Vale Bank chicane up to the start finish line. The Alpine goes. Can they go quicker? No, they won't. Only 200ths of a second behind the Aston Martin. Then you've got Zane in the McLaren rounding the final corner, deploying battery. I think it's a secondary run. I'm kind of taking that assumption from a fairly abysmal 140.1.
White Sheep in the Haas just coming through Stowe and down towards Vale. He will be next on the grid. We know how well he's performed. It's Kevin Zunneberg in the Red Bull at 1:36.7. The track is improving, and Kevin Zunneberg has found that improvement. White Sheep will join him on the front row. It is 1-2 in the rain here in Silverstone, but it's the same 2 that it's been for the opening 6 rounds, as we've seen them fight it out for the majority of most races. And the Red Bull and the Haas once again top the charts here in Great Britain. You've got TRT Christian. He's invalidated it, so he will have to go again. You've got Biel Souza in the Aston Martin just coming into Magus and Beckett. He had a 1:44, so a terrible lap for him, but he will try to improve that as he comes out of Beckett's. Down through the hanger straight we go. Because it's raining, you will not get that extra boost of DRS as we head in towards Stowe at turn 15. The Aston Martin driver just dragging that car around with him, just using the outside curb to his advantage and then slamming on the brake pedals. We go into Vale at turn 16, hugging the apex, round to the right hand side, over the curb, through 17, into club at 18 and down to the start finish line, and Biel Souza goes provisional pole.
Yeah, amazing lap there from the Aston, but quickly swiped away from the Alpine, just showing how track evolution is coming into play. The track is slowly getting drier, those inters starting to rub in, as Diogo Silva crossing the line now to skyrocket that Red Bull up into 3rd, quicker than their current teammate of Zunneberg. Then you've got likes of Lucas rounding out through Club in that special Williams livery. Over the line they go, lucky to keep it all intact. It's a 36.1 despite running off the road through the final corner. You've got White Sheep taking to the line, not finding improvement. Sieb just jumped up to P7, Sam up to 2nd, and then you've got Mattia Manga rounding out the final corner, 8/10ths up in the middle sector, and it's only enough for P2 as things stand.
Yeah, Lucas was very lucky there to keep that valid, because he runs so wide, but he stayed off the track as he went to the line, which kept it valid. Here comes TRT Christian for his opening banker, and it is P3. And TRT Christian with a great first lap on the board, but the TF10 boys are dominating at the moment. It is Lucas and Mattia Manga on the top step. You've got TF10 Sam in P4. You've got a couple more drivers coming to the line. You've got the other Kick Sauber of Salvo just starting another flying lap. TRT Zane in the McLaren also. Yeah, the good thing is, when you're around a track like Silverstone and you've got them intermediate tyres, you can progress quite quickly and continue to do lap after lap and gain that experience of the track, get the feel of the wet weather conditions, and then just improve your lap time, you know, lap after lap after lap.
Yeah, it's just one of those magical circuits, as you're on about. It's a very easy one to get used to, as Kevin Zonneberg definitely getting used to sitting up towards the front, doing a 35.594 in the process. Then you've got White Sheep who goes quickly up into second, and their teammate on an outlap about to start a flyer. But as I was saying, Silverstone, just a real magical circuit. Drivers love it, fans love it, and I definitely love commentating it.
Yeah, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. So some of the drivers still yet to go back into the pit lane, they're just raring to go. TRT Christian getting ready. Salvo is on another flying lap. He's just behind the Ferrari, but he's on an outlap, so it will be Salvo in the Sauber that will be next. He's a second up at the moment, which will put him around the lap time of Lucas, just in front of Lucas, unless he carries on improving through Sector 3 around turn 18 at Club. To the line we go, and it is P2. He did improve by another 3 tenths in Sector 3, which puts him up to P2 and in front of White Sheep.
Yeah, that's a good lap for Salvo, especially with such a difficult season so far. 2 points in the opening 6 rounds. I'm still sorry about last week. I did put a commentator's curse on him. I said he could double his points tally, then 2 corners later he went spinning off in turn 3 and dropped out of the points. So hopefully today is redemption. However, what I've just seen is Diogo Silva and Benjamin are sitting in the pit lane on soft compounded tyres, according to what I'm being given.
Yeah,
so,
the rain stopped.
Do they think it could be dry? Or dry enough to set a hot lap and maybe even go to the top of the timing charts? Or do they end up realising it's too damp and then all the intermediate runners go quicker? Because it's a fairly even split with those in the pit lane.
Yeah, this makes for very interesting readings. Vettel in the Haas, a 1:35.3. It is definitely heating up. You've got 6 minutes to go. The rain has stopped. The track doesn't look wet at all. So as it continues to dry out, these drivers potentially could get on to a dry compound tyre. As we can see, some of the drivers opting for the softs in the pit lane at the moment. Christian comes through a 1:35.2. The drivers are improving in every single lap that they proceed to do. Thiago comes through a 1:35.1. Just having a look at the tyres now, you can see the drivers just switching. You've got Diogo Silva on an outlap on the softs. All the other drivers still in the pit lane. You've got Christian, who's done 5 laps on the intermediates, as well as Salvo, and they will go back into the pit lane and proceed to change for dry compounds. Surely, with five or so minutes to go, these drivers have got the time to let this track dry out before going for pole position.
Yeah, I don't want to dishearten the Red Bull team with the soft tyre choice. You could literally just see, as I'm at least watching Diogo Silva, he's been understeering every single corner. He's only hit 1 apex in the first 7 corners he took. He almost went spinning off through Brooklands and Luffield. That's how unstable it is, to the point where drivers on the intermediates are being able to overtake him on the exit of corners. I don't think it's quite time for the softs, and we've seen many times in the past Silverstone quite a slow drying track, as Diogo's actually off through Chapel in the Red Bull, and then almost dropping it on the exit of it all, just showing how the gamble's there, but you have to be ready to chuck that car through and drive it like a rally car, which I just don't think most drivers are willing to do with such a high stakes qualifying session.
Yeah, back into the pit lane for Diogo Silva. So you are right, it is not ready just yet, and you can see that from TF10 Sam, who is out on a fresh set of intermediates. So they were watching Diogo Silva. Some of the drivers that have opted for the softs that are still in the pit lane, obviously watching Diogo Silva, seeing how tricky the conditions still are, and maybe that's swaying their decision to leave the pit lane as TF10 Sam on them intermediates goes sliding around. But what about Ivan? In the Williams, he is not on a lap time. He's just on a cool down lap, I think, and then on his way into the pit lane. Benjamin in the Alpine is on his way out on them soft compounds. Can he do any better than Diogo Silva? He's starting to look like he is a bit more competitive on them dry compounds.
Yeah, it's a very awkward one because we've just seen both compounds struggling. It's definitely that middle ground where it's like, is it dry, is it wet? There's probably some points where it's a lot damper for the dries and some points where it's a lot drier for the wets, as Benjamin into the pit lane, so he doesn't think it's soft compound running yet, as you've got TF10 Sam starting a flyer, quite a few cars starting to get ready to leave that pit box as well.
Yeah, so TF10 Sam is going to be the first of the final runners on them intermediates as he comes through the loop at turn 4 and down towards Aintree at turn 5. He'll definitely be a lot quicker on them intermediates. He's not. He's on a double outlap, maybe just to get rid of a bit of fuel and go again for that final run, but he is not on a flyer. Ticho in the Ferrari is out on the soft compounds, and you can see that out of the 17 drivers, 14 of them have now opted for the soft compounds with 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, I'm just watching the pit lane. It's a very red-walled pit lane. Everyone out on those softs. Hardly anyone opting for the inters. Christian's just pulled out the garage, I believe it is, on a set of inters, however. So there's some who are prepared to take that gamble on the inters, thinking it's not dry enough yet from what they've seen from the likes of Benjamin, Salvo, so on and so forth. But then there's still quite a few, well, the vast majority, all but 2, saying it's dry, as it's going to be interesting to see who ends up going quickest. Could it be one of those intermediate runners? But probability is that it will be one of those soft compound drivers.
Yeah, TRT Christian on an outlap on the intermediates, the only driver other than Sam to be out on them intermediates, and he's got to get a move on if he wants to get to the line here. So trying to catch up with some of the leaders. I think it is going to be the Sauber of Sam. You can see him just burning that fuel away, and either he is going to make the best decision of the season so far, or one of the worst by staying out on them intermediates. Let's see how it goes. He's got the Ferrari just edging him to go just behind as he comes through Vale and in towards Club, and Sam will get us underway for the final runs here in Silverstone for PSF2 here in PSGL. So Kevin Zunneberg, a 5-place grid penalty, that could potentially lead to a restart now. TF10 Sam in the kick Sauber. Sorry, Harry, go on.
Yeah, it depends on if they see it as unsafe, but what I saw is what Tiago said is if restarts are needed due to a grid pen, tag him. So if Zonnenberg doesn't tag Tiago, then I'd assume that Ferrari will just take it as an okay. But Sam, absolute best in that first sector, 3/4 of a second improvement. It doesn't look like those inters are good. I was looking at the outlap of Christian and he was gaining in the corners but losing outrageously on the exit. So it's definitely the corners that are better for the inters, but the straights and the exits are much better for the dries. So it's going to be a 50-50 battle as Sam tries to manoeuvre and dance that Sauber through Maggots and Beckett's. It's almost like doing some ballet. However, Sam able to continue to ace it 2 1/4 seconds up as they work their way up towards Stowe. Can they just keep that pressure on, go to the top of timing charts and keep it there, or will they fall short as now through the Vale Bank chicane goes the Sauber car round Club now? This is what matters. Can he get to the line and go quickest? It's a 33.2. I don't think it'll be enough, as you have Tisho rounding out that final corner in the Ferrari, and it will be enough over Tisho.
It is, so Ticho cannot get it, and neither can White Sheep on themselves. They're all coming through. Sam has topped the timing board, but Kevin Zunneberg on the softs comes through. Mattia Manga goes 8 tenths quicker. Tiago in the Ferrari goes P2. Kevin Zunneberg is dropped down, but they are piling up behind. Salvo did miss the opportunity to go again. He missed the line. Shadow goes provisional pole. Diogo Silva, Benjamin in the Alpine. TRT Zane goes P5. They are all coming through and their numbers, but it doesn't look like anybody was able to beat him. And I think it might have been Shadow who got pole position there. And it was Shadow in the Alpine takes pole here at the British Grand Prix. Mattia Manga will start on the front row of the grid with him. Tiago on the second row in P3 and Benjamin alongside him in the Alpine. On the third row of the grid it's TRT Zane and Diogo Silva. On the fourth row of the grid Christian and McLaren and Kevin Zunneberg in the Red Bull with a 5-place grid penalty. And on the fifth row of the grid it's TF10 Sam and Biel Souza. Then comes White Sheep, Ticho, Vessel, Salvo, Ivan, Lucas and Sieb.
Yeah, an amazing qualifying session, but the dramas are literally starting to kick off. Zunneberg has pinged Tiago saying restart, got a pen on an outlap. And what I think is quite clever about it, he's 30 points off White Sheep. He's in that championship fight, as we know, even though that 5-second time penalty completely wiped him out of points last week. He needs to try and make it up. He would be starting ahead of White Sheep without that penalty, so he could have maybe just called that penalty to turn around and say, I want to start in front of White Sheep today. I don't want to be behind him because I know I won't get past him.
Yeah, it's each position is so critical in the race. Just to clear up, so if somebody gets an illegal penalty, a grid penalty for illegally blocking another driver, is it an automatic restart on every occasion?
I'd say it depends on severity. If it's like everyone's bunched up, in Zunneberg's defence there was about 7 cars all in the same part of the track and Zunneberg was the one ahead. They were all trying to get track position, so I do think that's unfair as such, because they're all trying to give each other track position. And then, because there were 7 cars all piled up, the game gave it to the one leading them all. And that was, unfortunately, the Red Bull of Zunneberg, as you can just see a massive demolition derby. Who's going to end up winning this one? If it's Mattia Manga, I think he'll just ask to end the event there and call it quits.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I do think it's the right call to restart, but then if it was something petty like, oh, I ended up spinning and got in someone's way and they went into me, that's on you because you spun. But then if it's something like, I was trying to give someone track position, they were refusing to go by, and therefore you got the penalty for it.
It's a bit unfair,
Yeah. It's all about the fairness. However, what I'm looking at right now is Ward's got a ban for last week and today. It wasn't on there last week, but it is this week. So I'm just trying to work out what that's for at the same time.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's new news to me, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I'm also going to chuck the results over to what's his name, Tiago, so then he can get the grid back up and running as soon as possible. But it's a double Williams podium. I think they can happily turn around and say, can we end this race, because it would put them on top of the constructors, which I think we'd all love to see Williams return to glory. But, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it'll be a really interesting race, to be honest. Obviously, you've got the hanger straight where you can get a decent overtake, but if you time it right and you use your battery very cleverly, it's very hard for the driver behind to get that overtake. So it's very strategic, and we'll see that for the drivers throughout this race this evening.
Yeah, I think I've worked out where Ward's bans came from.
Okay.
So Ward's got a qualifying ban, yeah?
Yeah.
And then failed to serve it correctly.
Ah, okay.
By attempting to disqualify himself from the race or the event that was unravelling, but ended up unsafely disqualifying himself at the same time. So you naturally would typically get another race ban for unsafe disqualification of yourself.
Yeah.
And then also a race ban for failing to serve a quali ban. So it kind of just ended up hitting as a double whammy from my understanding of it all. But yeah, I'd probably have to properly talk to Ward about it. As
Yeah, real shame for him.
Yeah, especially someone with 10 points in the championship, trying to help Aston Martin alleviate themselves from their duties at the rear end. Currently it's just Mattia Manga doing all the work for them, which isn't ideal, especially with Ward's not being able to participate 3 events, coming 6th in quota, and then getting a DSQ and then 2 race bans.
Wow, yeah, that's heavy for the Aston Martin team. I mean, the result in quota was a great result for him. It was a bit of a crazy race. And then I weren't here last week with his qualifying ban, and now he's going to be missing for a couple of races as well.
No, he had the ban for Spain. So it was Austria in which he got that ban out of for quali ban stuff.
Oh, okay.
And now on what's it? Salvo's just turned around and said, wait, I have a quali ban? So I think there's another quali ban which just hasn't been served.
Oh,
so
what a shame.
about all the quali bans, it's just not the way they want it all to go.
It's so hard as well, because if you have a qualifying ban, when you're in such a competitive grid like PSF2 here in PSGL, it's so difficult to make up positions. And if you're starting at the back, you need an unbelievable strategy, and you need incredible pace to try and get through that grid and make up any decent points.
Yeah, what I want to try and argue over Salvos is it was for like brake checking and impeding and qualifying last week. From what I've seen, I'm literally going through the stewards' inquiries trying to work out what could have actually gave him it, but it does look like it's for a qualifying infringement a week ago. That's became a quali ban, and he's now turned around and went, wait, there's a quali ban? Since when?
So did he not know?
I don't think he knew. Whereas Ward's in his kind of admitted to it.
Okay,
he did 2 laps. So Salvo's kind of played the I don't know Scooby-Doo, and Ward was like, yeah, I knew, but it was after I did it I knew and realised that I effed up. So
yeah,
it's debatable, but it'll be a shame for Sauber, because Salvo taking possibly a race ban. Do I see much point? I'll be honest, I haven't seen Salvo qualify any higher than 11th all season. Not to like eat at him or anything, but does it impact too much? He's not one of those massive qualifiers who would get pole by not serving a quali ban, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. So if you are watching, just bear with us. We are just getting a restart underway. And then we will go into the race here in Silverstone, just due to a grid penalty. So here we go. We are getting underway, 30 seconds, and then we're into the race. The drivers, make sure they get the setups on, and then we will go racing. So just stay with us, bear with us, and we'll be back really shortly for the race.
Yeah, I'd recommend go getting some popcorn or a bag of crisps.
Yeah.
This could be a very spicy one.
I've got a feeling it's going to be.
Or stop your time trial or league race prep for a race tomorrow or whatever. You want to be watching this.
Here we go. So the drivers will just take their time to get the setups on, make sure they get the strategies right, and then we will go racing around this amazing, iconic circuit here in Great Britain with 17 drivers on the grid.
Yeah. Do you think it's a 1 or 2 stop is my question for this race?
Oh, it's a tough one. I think it totally depends, really, if there's any safety cars or VSCs. If we see a VSC at any point in the race, I think we'll see 2 stops, 100%. Safety car, the same. We'll see a 2 stop, but I think some drivers will try and make the 1 stop without any yellow flags. But knowing what Silverstone's like, I'll be very, very surprised if we don't see some type of safety car.
Yeah, so you know me, I love talking strategy and tyres. It's just what I do, but I do think it's a 1 stop. I've seen many a times in the past drivers do 10 lap on mediums and go 16 on the hards. Some have even done 22 laps on the hards in events around Silverstone in only a 50% race. So it does look like the 1 is very much possible.
Yeah.
You just have to be good with your tyres. However, you know, see, Silverstone, you never know what can happen. Every single corner is like a new mystery. But then also, if you remember back to round 4, which was in fact the last time we actually did this together, there were 7 DNFs in the same corner. No safety car, no VSC.
Yeah, you're right. I remember that. Rain at the end, says Salnix on YouTube. Rain at the end of the race.
But yeah, as I was saying, in Spain, there was about 3 safety cars and 2 VSCs. So, it really depends on what happens. I'll be honest, the 7-car massacre at Monaco was a lot more dangerous than someone crashing into the pit entry at Spain. But, yeah, I don't know. I think Silverstone is typically going to be a bit more hectic than the likes of Spain, though. Just due to the nature of the corners.
Yeah, you're right, Harry. Each circuit's just so different, and the game just plays out so differently. You can get a 7-car pile-up and not a single blink of an eye from the safety car, and then you can get a little tap and a driver spin around, and next thing the safety car's out on track piling them all back up. So it just totally depends how the safety car feels on that day and what sort of circuit you're running around, what type of collision it is. I do notice that around Silverstone you are more than likely to get a safety car or a VSC at some point, and I think as the drivers continue to go lap after lap and the tyres deteriorate, they struggle quite a lot to hold on to the car, and especially when you're coming through Maggots and Beckett, or you're battling side by side into Stowe and going into Vale, even going down into Brooklands and Luffield, you're very close. You're on the brink of holding on to that Formula 1 vehicle, and it's so easy to just get the power down a little sooner, to try and get that extra bit of pace, to try and get that overtake, and next thing you're rounding into the wall. It's just so difficult.
Yeah, one thing I love about Silverstone though is a really good analogy I do put out. Is it's like one big war zone, because if you think about it, you can fight up towards Brooklands, you can keep that going through Luffield and Woodcote, even up to Copse. If you can get the run out of Copse, you can fight through Maggots and Beckett.
Here we go, Harry. So this is it. 5 red lights here in PSGL F2, and it's lights out and away we go. Down in towards turn 1 at Abbey we go, and it is the Alpine that leads the way. His teammate Benjamin's fighting with Thiago as they go through Farm Curve and down in towards Village. There's a bit of a pile-up. Thiago is through on TRT Zane as the McLaren drops back and is now nearly wheel to wheel with his teammate. Diogo Silva is scrapping back after losing 4 places. The 2 Hasses sandwiching Diogo Silva, who tries to get the straight line speed, has a little tap. Here comes Vettel. Here comes the Ferrari of Ticho down the inside for the double overtake. Hits the back of the Haas, and the Haas teammate of Vettel tries to cut back up the inside of Luffield and in towards Woodcote we go.
Yeah, absolute manic start, especially with the 2 Hasses racing up through the field. You can tell they are out of place, and the Red Bulls are just trying to fight for their dear lives. As you can see a bit further back is Ivan and Lucas in the 2 Williams trying to go wheel to wheel through the Maggots and Beckett's complex, and then Salvo trying to salvage something out of it, trying to go around the outside of Chapel. No DRS this lap, that comes in a lap's time, but the Williams will be on the outside. of the Sauber. A bit of contact made between the two, but Salvo will go up to P14 as we start the next lap. It's Shadow who leads to Matthew Manga, then Benjamin, as it's all kicking off back there with White Sheep now ahead of Kevin Zonneberg.
Yeah, Lucas is off and into the gravel as he came around Club and down the pit straight. He flew off into the gravel. That is Kevin Zonneberg being overtaken by Vessel, but he'll try and go around the outside and switch it back through the loop down in towards Aintree, but Vessel is through, so is White Sheep, his championship rival, and Kevin Zonneberg has to turn it up here and has to get it into second gear because he is losing places. And now TF10 Sam will try and make a move, the Sauber driver around left field at turn 7, down in towards turn 8, he's around and he's hit the Red Bull and he's took out his teammates Salvo and Sam. The two Saubers have crashed here in Silverstone.
Yeah, not what Sauber would want, especially with so many DNFs as of recent. The last time they in fact managed to salvage a point was in Austria. They had a double failure to finish out in Spain. Then they only had one race win. Then they've really just had a fairly mediocre season, and it's only got worse here. Zonneberg down to P12 now with Sauber. I do feel like Zonneberg's put on a Monaco setup for Silverstone.
Yeah, he's on his way. He's on his way into the pit lane. White Sheep says the fastest lap, and his championship rival is way ahead. Kevin Zonneberg, after 3 laps, is into the pit lane. So is Biel Souza. Salvo, I don't know how, managed to get out of that unscathed after smashing into his teammate. Lucas is now up to P14 after that, drifting off around turn 18, and Kevin Zonneberg does get past Biel Souza in the pit lane, but it is still Shadow in the Alpine that leads to Mattia Manga and Benjamin. A double Alpine podium as it stands. The two McLarens, as always, very consistent, and it's 2x4 as the two Haas drivers are just behind the papayas of White Sheep and Vessel. White Sheep's got his teammate now to have that little bit of a safety net behind him, and Kevin Zonneberg, who's like 30 points behind White Sheep in the championship, has now dropped all the way down to P15, Harry. This is massive.
Yeah, I don't think Zonneberg needed to take that penalty anymore, because either way, White Sheep's found himself ahead of him within the first 3 laps. Whether or not that was Zonneberg completely having 0 pace, or him getting that grid drop and having it conveyed. Because, yeah, inevitably, White Sheep just whooped straight past that Red Bull, and that is really why that Haas driver is leading this championship, because he has those balls to make those moves so early on to try and dice their way back up through the field, and they're already P7 from about P11 on the starting grid.
Yeah, done a brilliant job in the opening 3 laps. TRT Christian and TRT Zane getting very close to that Ferrari in front of Thiago. I'm sure it was the the 2 McLarens and then the 2 Haas drivers, and Thiago and Ticho on either side of them, just holding them in position. Mattia Manga has not been able to use his DRS to get an overtake on Shadow just yet. They come around Luffield and Woodcote and down in towards Copse. It is Shadow half a second in front as we watch the aerial view down in towards Copse. Beautiful camera angles, and you can see the drivers, how well they angle their cars to take that into Copse, and then through Maggots and Beckett we go, and the drivers are now forming a very disciplined and organised line.
Yeah, you can just admire the beauty of the suspension at its best through Maggots and Beckett's. You could just see the car leaning one side to the other as they went through each part of that complex. And to think they don't drop the ball through it just shows how much downforce the ground effect era of cars do have.
Absolutely. So Mattia Manga still not able to get close enough to Shadow to make anything happen at this point. 22 laps to go, and that is IRTC on Ivan. Ivan in the Williams has made a mistake, and his teammate of Lucas made a mistake in the exact same area just 3 laps ago, and Ivan has gone and done the same thing. And has he picked up damage? He's got a missing end plate. So that is awful for Ivan. He will have to commit to that 2-stop now, just get into the pit lane and get some fresh rubbers on. Potentially get the hards to the end of the race, but I think at this point, especially fixing that front wing, and Kevin Zonnenberg sets the fastest lap. And here comes Salvo on Diogo Silva. He's very close to him as you come through Woodcote and down towards Copse. Diogo Silva got a really good exit in that Red Bull, but Salvo is catching him up in the Sauber as we head towards Maggots and Beckett. Salvo will get that DRS. Diogo Silva is a 1.5 seconds behind Ticho in that Scuderia. So through Beckett's, the Red Bull went a little bit wide, but the Sauber has a snap. Has he lost his opportunity to get that P10 from the Red Bull driver up the hanger straight? And he has indeed. He's not going to be close enough to make anything happen on this lap.
Yeah, unfortunate for the Sauber, of course, their teammate out of the race. Now it's really Salvo's turn to try and bring home the points. Fun fact, Salvo has not got a singular finish this season.
Wow.
Which is quite disappointing, I'd say, for the Sauber. Actually, no, my eyes are deceiving me. Somehow he's got a P9, but it doesn't show up on the constructors. I'm going to bring up to the coordinator about that. But yeah, Salvo 2 points this season, somehow got a 9th, which was logged as a DNF in a different race. But
oh, here comes Salvo on Diogo Silva up the inside, and Salvo will move into P10. What an optimistic move that was, but he absolutely pulled it off. But now he's got to defend against that Red Bull, and he was a little bit squirrely on the exit of Luffield down into Woodcote. Towards Copse we go, but Salvo is through on Diogo Silva, the one-man band trying to double his points tally for the season.
Yeah, I'm still getting lost in amongst the maze of the drivers and constructors standings. Hyperlink, let's call it, just trying to cross-reference it all. However, yeah, my eyes aren't deceiving me. I've literally just put my glasses on, and when I look at the constructors, Salvo's got 0 points in there, but when I look at the drivers, Salvo's got a P9. So I'm a wee bit confused.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that would be.
But yeah, apart from that, for Salvo, that's his only points finish this season. And whenever Sam's DNF'd, Salvo's also DNF'd. And now I've said that, I've probably put on the commentator's curse
yes.
on it as well.
Definitely. Yeah, the commentator's curse is well and truly active. So, the two McLarens in P5 and P6, they've been really consistent, Zane and Christian. They're so closely matched in pace, and when they do their strategies and when they race wheel to wheel, they're just so good at staying together throughout the track. Mattia Manga still 0.5 seconds behind Shadow, and every time he'll get the DRS, Shadow is burning a little bit more battery, but you would expect him to be in the lead car. But Mattia Manga hasn't come close enough to even challenge Shadow at any point during the opening 7 laps yet.
Yeah, I think he's had a fairly good run out of Maggots and Beckett's here. He's got the rear wing open, as he has done practically since the race start. But again, as you said, just can't get close enough to the car ahead, as Sam has just questioned Kevin Zonnenberg over that collision on lap 1, I think it was. So there's definitely going to be some altercations. Sam's just called him brain dead, but I do think that was I do think that was a bit optimistic on both parties' behalves, and then it just ended up being a clash of lines more than anything. That's just what you get in such an early stage of the race. Yeah,
Ivan, 13 seconds of penalties now for the Williams driver, so he's racking them up. My boy Josh is cooking. Let us know who Josh is, what's his gamer tag. So Shadow in the Alpine is leading to Mattia Manga as they come through Luffield and Woodcote. You've got Benjamin, his teammate, also there in P1. Josh's Shadow, yeah, big up Josh in P1. Tiago, and then TRT Zane and Christian in the McLaren. And the gaps are quite nice at the moment. The DRS train all the way from P1 to P9, and then you've got a 2.5 second gap to Salvo after that collision with his teammate. I think it was Kevin Zunneberg and Sam that collided, and then Salvo went driving into Sam, which DNF'd him, but he was facing the wrong way. Here comes IRTC on the back of Diogo Silva, but they've both got DRS. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to make anything happen. They aren't. They're stuck in that train. But what about Diogo Silva? That is Shadow, and that is Mattia Manga into the pit lane. He's going for the undercut. The Aston Martin driver, the Italian, has gone into the pit lane to get a change of rubber and to try and get that undercut on Shadow in the Alpine. Can he possibly get in front? Onto the hard compound tyres we go. You've got White Sheep also into the pit lane, so he's looking for the undercut. White Sheep has been incredible with his race strategies this season. Is he going to perform once more here in Silverstone?
Yeah, I do hope something does come out of it, but then of course the undercut, it's powerful, but then once you've done it and everyone else has pitted, you become the weaker force, because everyone's going to end up having those 1 lap or 2 lap fresher tyres, and they'll just be able to regain the advantage you kind of gained on them. So all in all, it just evens out.
Great battle here, by the way, with Salvo and Diogo Silva. Salvo is now up to P8. He got to move on. Diogo Silva, who's now chasing him down through cops. You've got IRTC running really wide. He's also catching up to the back of these two drivers. Into Maggots and Beckett we go. You can see the Sauber gets a very good entrance and exit, but he's lost the rears, and the Red Bull is now going to be all over him like a rash. Here comes Sieb, the Mercedes and the Red Bull on the Sauber. They're both going to go to the left-hand side. The Red Bull and the Mercedes will make the move. The Sauber is round, and he's held on to it. He's drifted it like a prime Max Verstappen.
Yeah, that is just disheartening for the Sauber driver. They were so close to holding on, and then they just got a bit too close, kissed the Red Bull's gearbox, and that just led to the end of the beginning for the Sauber's hopes at points today. They can still probably come back at it if they can keep their heads down. We've seen so many times this season before that if a driver puts their head down, they can ace it.
Mattia Manga has gone into the lead, Harry, and White Sheep has come out just behind Shadow, but that is provisional P3 for White Sheep and provisional P1 for Mattia Manga. Kevin Zunneberg, now that the other drivers have pitted, is now in front of Vessel, but he's on a lot older hard compound tyres. Is this going to hold up Vessel in the Haas? Kevin Zunneberg will not be bothered about this. He's bothered about White Sheep, and if Vessel had to come out in front of Kevin Zunneberg, this would have been great for his championship rival of White Sheep, because his teammate then could have helped him out a little bit by holding up that Red Bull. But Mattia Manga, with the undercut, he made it work, Harry.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised he made it work, but now does he hold on to it? Because of course Shadow has got 1 lap fresher tyres. Yes, 1 lap doesn't sound much, but when it comes to the final few laps, that could be up to ½ a second improvement per lap. That just shows how quickly those tyres can degrade after they've hit a certain point, as you can now see Benjamin and T-Show limping down that pit lane, and Zane now takes your race lead. Unfortunately for him, that's probably about provisional P6 in this race still, as it'll be a question as to whether or not Ben and T-Show can hold on against White Sheep, because let's be realistic, that's the man they are racing at this moment in time.
Yeah, and Vessel did get through on Kevin Zunneberg So where does Benjamin come out in all of this? He's out of the pit lane and he's come out just behind Thiago and Christian. Christian is going to go at the inside of Thiago. The Ferrari leaves in the space. Beautiful racing from the pair of them. Thiago stays in front. Nothing Christian can do. Down the Hamilton straight we go. And can he make another opportunity with that rear wing open? A little bit too late on this occasion as Benjamin just comes out on fresh tyres, but he's got a little bit of overtaking to get done in the remaining 15 and a half laps.
Yeah, there's so much time for things to change. As you can see, Shadow probably getting closer to Matthew Manga than Matthew Manga was ever able to do against Shadow. So could there be a move going up through Stowe? You can just see the gap closing and closing in for a brief moment, then it lifted back off to about a tenth or so, and then gets to that half a second, which we've seen so many times before. Once you get there, a move into Stowe is almost impossible. You want to be within 4 tenths for the best chance, best selling shot possible into Stowe, as Zane is limping down that pit lane. What side of their teammate do they come out on? I'd assume it'd probably be behind Benjamin in that Alpine, unfortunately.
Why Shadow seems so much quicker on the straights than Mattia Manga. When he was coming up the Hamilton up the Hanger straight, his car was catching up to Mattia Manga so much quicker than when it was vice versa. Christian and Benjamin going at it once again like cat and dog. Christian trying to hold on. Here comes Benjamin into the slipstream on them fresher tyres, and he's going to get that bit of dirty air, and now he's going to have to try and find a way through. Christian goes later on the brakes to fend off an attack. Benjamin now has the racing line as he comes around Lovefield. Can he get the better exit on the Papaya, or is the Papaya performing as we go down towards Copse? Once again he's going to come. It's Hamilton and Verstappen-esque in towards Copse we go. The McLaren and the Alpine go wheel to wheel, and the Alpine backs out. Christian stays ahead. Wow.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a track limit strike for Ben, which is not what the Alpine wants. Of course, 3 of those, and it is a slam dunk penalty. But as you're saying about Shadow being so much quicker in a straight line, you've just seen that again. He closed in about 3 tenths on the Hanger straight, whereas Matthew Manga wasn't even able to do a tenth and a half. It's most likely due to running that lower downforce, but then having a bit of toe out in the suspension geometry, just to allow you to be stable in the corners and be able to project yourself in a straight line, making a better all-round car for a track like Silverstone.
Absolutely, and Kevin Zunderberg is into the pit lane for the second time this evening, and Shadow is all over the back of Mattia Manga. Down the Hamilton straight we go. He is very close. This could be it. No, he's going to be patient. He's going to wait. And this is very clever racing from Shadow into Brooklands through Lovefield at turn 7 we go. And the Aston Martin holding off that Alpine for now. But look at the straight line speed of Shadow down towards Copse at turn 9, and he is closing that gap, but he has to slam on the brake pedal as he goes into Copse when the Aston Martin didn't need to do that. So it just goes to show that the car setup is completely different for these two drivers. Into Magnussen Beckett, through Chapel, down the Hanger straight, but Mattia Manga did get a good exit. Is Shadow close enough to make the move? Here he comes. Which way is he going to go? And he stays where he is for now.
Yeah, he should have gone to the inside. We should have seen a recreation of Salvo on Diogo Silva there, because you could just see how much more top speed the Alpine now has, and as a result he's now stuck in that dirty air for longer. They'll put more heat on those tyres, increase the wear, and he's even got the championship leader right up the rear end, who is of course Mr. P2 himself, White Sheep. He's got 4 of those this season. He's probably looking at a 5th one rather than his 2nd race win.
Yeah, White Sheep has done a really good job here from where he was on the grid. He's basically provisional P3, and because Shadow is staying behind Mattia Manga, White Sheep is able to catch up, and the championship leader, he's fighting for the lead. I cannot believe we're saying this, but White Sheep is essentially fighting for the lead here. Shadow is just holding off, but how long can he possibly keep Shadow at bay? Here comes Shadow once again, down in towards Cops. He's definitely not going to go for the overtake here because he will open himself up for the return down the hanger straight in towards Maggots and Beckett. This is where Shadow needs to stay with him, but it's so hard when you're right in that dirty air in towards the S section, but he is a lot closer than he's ever been. Here comes Shadow. He'll burn that battery. That rear wing will open. Can Shadow retake the provisional lead? He'll go the long way round the outside. He'll switch it back, but the Aston Martin still holding on. Lucas is into the pit lane. How is Mattia Manga holding on to the provisional lead here? I don't know.
Yeah, if you were to have a face cam on me, you'd just see my visual disappointment, as that should have been Shadow, who should have took the lead in that moment. Every single opportunity is very much seizable.
Yeah.
It just ends up being wasted, which is good because, of course, F1's aiming to become biodegradable and use the wasted energy, but at this point, they need to use that energy in some overtaking rather than becoming more eco-friendly.
Absolutely, Harry. So, Kevin Zonneberg setting the fastest lap again on them fresh tyres, but he's down in P15 and his championship rival is fighting for P3. It is just unbelievable. Ricky Badani, I will give you the tyres right now. There they are. So, in towards Cops once again. It's deja vu. Shadow is just backing off a little bit, so he's not within that dirty air of the Aston Martin. Is this going to give him the better exit that he's been hoping for? No, Mattia Manga did get a good exit, enough maybe to hold him off once again, and he does.
Yeah, it's just one big DRS train. You can now see that it's queued up all the way down to P9 out on track as they all trying to make a way past one another. As Benjamin did have a little peek to the inside of Christian, tried demoting that McLaren down a place just to make some matters worse for the Papaya outfit. They're of course in this constructors fight with Haas currently sitting 16 points behind them. This event does look like they'll be leaving quite even on points, as you've got a very lovely sandwich forming. Yes, I'm going to try and make you hungry. You've got White Sheep 4th and Vessel in 10th. Then you've got the Ferraris on the inner outermost layer. Then you've got the two McLarens in between that. Then you've got a lovely candy floss liveried Alpine as your main snack. So yeah, it's a very nice sandwich analogy for how this is going to impact the championship. In terms of points, they're going to be leaving identical unless one of them tries to break that rhythm and move up that field.
Yeah, Christina TV, I'll get the tyres up. So here we go once again. White Sheep and Shadow on the back of Mattia Manga. 10 laps to go. Mattia Manga is still the provisional leader when Sieb pits. Sieb is one of them drivers that continues to go longer on his tyres and go for an alternative strategy to everybody else. White Sheep, Thiago, Christian, Benjamin, Zane and Ticho. Vessel is also starting to catch up, and I think Mattia Manga is essentially just backing everybody up into this DRS train here.
Yeah, if so, then Zonneberg will just be hoping that Mattia Manga gets to a point where he's physically standing still on the apex of a corner, just so he can try and gain a few seconds per corner, just to try and work their way up through the field. However, I don't think Mattia Manga's that desperate for the likes of Zonneberg and Ivan to catch up and try and intervene with what seems to be going a fairly decent race for the Aston Martin driver.
Yeah, I think Mattia Manga would have really benefited from help from Beal Souza in this race, but he's not going to get it. He's down in P14 and he's around 15 seconds away from this DRS train, so the only time he would potentially come into play is if they were going for the two-stop, which I don't see any of the drivers doing. And just to point out, Harry, this is probably one of the first races I've watched where we've got to lap 17 in Silverstone and not seen any type of yellow flag.
I'm pretty sure we did see a yellow flag for Sam when he had that big...
Oh, of course, sorry. I mean, like, virtual safety car or safety car, my bad.
I'll be honest, that should have been a VSC at bare minimum. Like, there was a car just off the racing line, about 20 centimetres off it, and there was debris scattered all across the exit of the corner. It's a VSC, straightforward. You can't say it isn't, because there's a standstill car and there's damage on the track that could give a driver punctures. There is Benjamin being tapped in the back by Zane. That could have been a puncture, but yeah.
IRTC will be whacking himself in that helmet for getting that 10-second time penalty for speeding into the pit lane, because he's on fresh tyres now for the remaining 8 laps. He will catch up to this DRS train pretty quickly. There goes Lucas on salvo up the inside of Brooklands. Beautiful. From above we watch as well, and that was fantastic from Lucas on salvo. But yeah, so Mattia Manga still backing him up, and IRTC picking up that 10-second time penalty in the pit lane. He will be within that DRS train very shortly on them fresher tyres. He will be so much quicker, and he will be kicking himself because he's got that 10-second time penalty, so all his hard work from this point on is just going to be undone.
Yeah, it is frustrating for a driver of Seam's ability. Like, the Mercedes are literally turned around and won only a week ago in Barcelona. Now he's struggling with, in a way, rookie errors you shouldn't really be making at such a high level, but do end up slipping in as you're trying to get the best result possible. For a team that is, of course, struggling 9th in the championship, 3 points up from last, that unfortunately will become last after this race, with Mattia Manga holding your provisional, well, lead, because you never know what's going to happen post-race. We saw White Sheep lose a win out in Kota due to a post-race penalty. So I'm not going to say Mattia Manga will win, then he gets slapped around the face with the 10 seconds. That sends him down to 12, as his teammate is round in the loop.
Yeah, so that's a yellow flag as the driver is around. Shadow doesn't seem to be attacking Mattia Manga as much as he has done in the previous laps. So
I think this is saving your tyres phase, because he's been aggressing the back end of the Aston Martin so much over the last 5 or so laps. The tyre temps are just going to be through the roof. Now he's dropped back to that half a second range. He's now got a chance to somewhat recuperate that battery, ready for a later charge when Mattia is on much weaker tyres. As I said earlier, you can lose up to half a second a lap just by having 1 lap older tyres at the very end of a race at a circuit like Silverstone. So for Shadow, he's just trying to keep those temps cool and stay with the Aston Martin so he doesn't get consumed by the rest of the field during his tyre saving phase. As you can see through the loop down towards Aintree, DRS will be back open, but then they're all just sitting at that lovely 6 to 7 tenths difference between one car to another, just because that's really where the dirty air stops its effect and you can just drive freely.
IRTC with the overtake on Salvo, so he's absolutely flying now. What I will say, Harry, is I think these tyres are going to be on the brink of puncture territory at the end of this race. Looking at the tyres, you've got Benjamin in the Alpine, who's on the freshest of the hards. I think he's done 9 laps. They're on 48% wear, and they go all the way up to 61% wear on the 11 lap old tyres.
That is a very big difference, but I don't know, if you think about it, some of these drivers have had them on before lap 10, so to do 10 laps and be on only 60%, you can easily do another 6 laps, but then it's a big risk, as you said. It's going to be puncture territory. That's when you're going to see the likes of track limit penalties creeping into play, where the drivers will start avoiding the curbs because those vibrations could literally end up having a tyre pop. I've seen that many times. I saw someone lose a race win on the final lap because their tyre went pop because they ran over the curb at turn 4 at Brazil. It's like any form of vibration that you can get through those tyres can lead to a puncture. So if they do try and make it go to the end, they are going to have to be babysitting them for dear life.
Sieb gets another overtake on Diogo Silva, so the Mercedes driver is through and up to P11. Ticho on the back of TRT's in, they're all locked in that DRS train, but Shadow only 3 tenths behind Mattia Manga now. Is this the opportunity to go? I tell you what, Mattia Manga has got so much more battery than Shadow, which is really surprising considering the positions that they are in. Mattia Manga half a second in front, and I tell you, Shadow is not going to be close enough once again to make anything happen here.
Maybe it's Mattia knows he's got that like top speed advantage that is strong enough just to keep him ahead in all the DRS zones, because we've seen it. No matter how much battery Shadow deploys, no matter how many corners he cuts to try and get closer to Mattia Manga, he's just unable to get past come the end of a lap. However, I think you can start seeing the pushing phase come back into play. Shadow 3 tenths behind Mattia as they go through that first detection point for DRS this lap. Could they be trying to size up an unorthodox move into Brooklands? You can just see how close they get going through Aintree. The rear
this
wing
is close.
Now open as they work their way up towards Brooklands. The Alpine looks to the inside, has a sniff of it, goes, you know what, I'll wait for another opportunity, as they now go through Luffle, the long swooping right-hander, which opens up lovely into Woodcott, then down the national pit straight as they go to Copt, riding over that curb, trying to use the full width of the track. Unfortunately for Ivan, he's been using a bit too much of the track, of course. Those 3 seconds now kicking into play. Mattia Manga galloping over the curves like they're hurdles, almost driving with no regrets, as now onto the run up to Stowe Corner. Can Shadow finally get the move on Mattia? He's been closer than he has been for the last 5 laps. He fails to do so.
Yeah, Mattia Manga doing an incredible job here. He really is, showing how you go defensive racing on a track with so many good drivers. And Salvo right on the back of Diogo Silva. He's going to go for a move and he thinks better of it. They lock up slightly and a little slip and a slide from Diogo Silva leaves Salvo all over the back of him, but then he tears the rears and opportunity is gone. But back in to the leaders, it is Mattia Manga to Shadow, White Sheep, Thiago, Christian and Benjamin are your top 6. White Sheep has been losing a little bit of time, which we're not used to seeing, but because of the battle in between Mattia Manga and Shadow, he's starting to catch back up with that DRS again, so he's coming back into contention. But I tell you what, these tyres, 76% for the Red Bull of Diogo Silva with 3.5 laps to go.
Yeah, if you think about Diogo Silva though, typically in his position you are burning up a lot more tyre because you're fighting one car relentlessly. Whereas for Mattia Manga, you can say you're fighting relentlessly against Shadow, but have we seen any moves? Not really. It's more than anything just been managing a gap for them, so they aren't able to really push as hard. But Shadow working up towards Stowe, hopefully being able to try and tower on an attack against Mattia Manga. Goes out of Stowe Corner, no move made, and it's just going to be this cycle hopefully for the next few laps to give Mattia Manga the win, as the Aston Martin getting daringly close to the white lines throughout most of these corners, I dare say.
He is there on the limit. Salvo does get through on Diogo Silva, the Sauber driver, up to P12, and Diogo on them really old hard compounds now are starting to fall off, and he's down to P13 with his teammate just behind him. It's not been a good race at all for these Red Bulls. But Diogo Silva is going to give us a bit of action. Down the inside he goes. And that was a great overtake. He now has the inside line, but the Sauber will switch here back as he drifts through there, down towards Woodcote. Sorry, not Woodcote, Brooklands. We go at turn 6, and then Lovefield at turn 7. Salvo goes back through, and if the front runners aren't going to give us any action, the back runners definitely are, as Salvo returns to P12.
Yeah, I do think this is a great opportunity for Zonnebjerg to pit, because Even has just done so, meaning Zonnebjerg's got all the track behind him to do so, but up the front, 4 tenths and a bit, splitting Shadow and Mattia Manga. Laps are fading away. We literally have 2 more runs up through Stowe now before we find out who wins. These are the attempts that mean the most, because if you fail to execute them, that's going to be a difference between coming home with 16 points and coming home with 12 points, which can be very crucial in a championship so close as this one.
Yeah, so Mattia Manga knows he's on the penultimate lap. He's got this and the final lap to go to be crowned your race winner, which I think is phenomenal. Because Mattia, there's Benjamin on Christian, the McLaren and the Alpine, wheel to wheel, and the Papaya is just behind. The Alpine gets his nose ahead. They're now going to go for a drag race down in towards Brooklands at turn 6, but the Papaya has got the inside line, but then it will switch back to the Alpine as we go in towards Lovefield at turn 7. The McLaren drags it around and leans on to the outside line, and through goes Christian.
Yeah, Shadow had a massive attempt through Lovefield as well. Literally tried banging Mattia out wide by poking that nose in. It was a very dangerous move, I would say, but it's the kind of move you need to make in order to catch the drivers off guard.
There's rain
and gain the place. As now we are about to see it spice up, as you've just said, there is rain for the likes of the front runners. Of course, they are perilously close to puncture. I think you said about 2 laps ago, Diogo Silva 76% on the tyres. This is where the tyres will be nothing, as there's White Sheep on the outside of Shadow. Can White Sheep take his 5th P2 of the season? He will sit in P2, but White Sheep not getting the better exit through club. Up towards Abbey and Farm they go for the final time this race. It's Shadow who's ahead of the Haas for the time being, but the rain is looking rather heavy as there is a spin for Diogo Silva. That is the leading Red Bull going round, as off is
He got a puncher. He got a puncher. Diogo got a puncher on them tyres. That means everybody else is open for a puncher, Harry. And that battle between Shadow and White Sheep has given Mattia Manga a huge gap to win this race.
Yeah, Mattia Manga loving this out there. But then also White Sheep, he could be coming home with his 5th P2 of the season, which is quite miraculous to think. We aren't even 8 races in, and he's got that quantity of P2s. That's why he's the championship leader, as Salvo has gone round. I think he's got a puncture. Yes, it's rear left in terms of that Salvo. Unfortunately for Salvo, that will maybe be a DNF.
Yeah, Ticho's lost a few places as well, and they are all really struggling in the rain. That's a car round. That's the McLaren of saying that is out. He's pinned it into the wall. Benjamin is chasing down Christian. White Sheep on Shadow. They are all going at it into the final couple of corners on the final lap. Down towards Vale. Mattia Manga, the Italian driver around club. Mamma mia, Mattia Manga wins the Silverstone Grand Prix. Shadow will take P2, it's White Sheep in P3, Benjamin and Seba going at it, but it's Benjamin that takes P5, the 2 Scuderias in P6 and P7, Vessel P8, Lucas P9. What a huge drama at the end of that Grand Prix.
Yeah, I think Benjamin may actually lose it post-race. If you didn't see, he went for a very heavy lunge in Vale. He ended up knocking Christian about 7 times over to try and force his way by. If the studs deem it dangerous, then there could be a penalty going their way, but what White Sheep's just said, you do have to praise him for P11 to P3 here in Silverstone. He's definitely weathered the storm that has just arrived. But for Salvo, he is still limping around this circuit. I don't see why he just doesn't DNF at this point.
Yeah, I think he needs to retire at some point, doesn't it? Yeah. But what a performance, what a drive for Mattia Manga. He absolutely performed today, Harry.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say about 4 laps ago, which I think I'm good not to have said, is that if things were to have stayed the way it was at Red Bull, Diogo Silva would have beat Kevin Zunderberg for the first time this season. Then he of course got that puncture and now finished P12 compared to his teammate in P11. Luckily for Red Bull, not their worst finish of the season. Of course it's pointless, but then in round 2 at Spa it was 13th and 14th for those Red Bulls, marking their official worst race this season. But yeah, Diogo Silva 9 seconds shy of beating Zunderberg for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can just see while Salvo takes a little victory spin for P15 in that Sauber. He's definitely making the most of it as they cross the line now. Just to park in a grid slot, to have one last grid start here at Silverstone. As I think,
Jesus,
yeah, there he goes over the line. Well,
that was an exciting race.
Yeah, it ended up being quite a busy one, let's say the least. But I think I can now take back something I said at the very start. Every time Sam's DNF'd, Salvo's DNF'd.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Salvo managed to take to the line. I think that's why he was encouraged to go on.
Yeah, that was crazy. He called it right from the start. So there we have it. Mattia Manga on the top step. Mattia Manga, the Italian driver in the Aston Martin from P2 on the grid, wins here in Silverstone. Shadow in the Alpine takes P2 from pole position. White Sheep from P11 onto the podium and takes a huge grip of that PSF2 title here in PSGL, sponsored by Sim Racing Setups. TRT Christian in the McLaren in P4, and then Benjamin in the Alpine in P5. Tiago and Ticho, the 2 Ferraris in 6 and 7, then Vessel in P8, Lucas in P9 and Sieb in P10. Then comes Kevin Zunderberg, Diogo Silva, Biel Souza, Ivan, Salvo, Zane and Sam are your 17 drivers.
Yeah, I do think this is probably up there with some of the races this season. I do think Monaco still tops it just due to those 7 DNFs in the same corner, those transitioning conditions. And then I do think Spain is second just due to the safety car chaos. But then Silverstone, the late weather drama, really has to be the headline of today. We saw the podium shake up about 7 odd times in that final lap, mainly between White Sheep and Shadow, but at least we can't say White Sheep's now got 5 podiums this season in 7 races. It's instead 4 and 7, which is a slightly less concerning ratio, but still quite concerning to think that's where most of his results lie.
Yeah, he's been very dominant, has a White Sheep, even from P11 today. He performed so well and came back. But there you have it, guys. That is it for this week in Silverstone for PSGL F2, the PlayStation division. And I've been your commentator. We will be back for the next one. And Harry, thank you as well for joining me in the comments box.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And we'll see you in the new year.
Oh, of course we will. There's no more races now until the new year. Yeah, so if you're all listening, everybody, have a great Christmas. I hope you've enjoyed the first 7 rounds of PSGL with me and Harry on the comms, in the new comms box for this season. I think it's gone really well in the opening races. So hopefully you'll join us back in the new year. Have a great Christmas with your friends and family. Have a great New Year, celebrate it, and as I always say to everybody, if you've got nobody to speak to over the Christmas period, or you're lonely, or you're just feeling down, my inbox is always open. Send me a message. But yeah, thank you everybody, thank you Harry, and everybody take care.